Made with spoken. Spoken sample. By James Campras. Digital narration performed by multiple digital voices.
Softly, the Laqos lifts its voice in tremors, its heart a chalice wrought of woven light. The watchers, spellbound, linger at the threshold, yearning that kinship might emerge, and not the shadowed hand of enmity. Ancient Aurovandran prayer. The garrison door thundered open, striking the table with a crack like lightning against oak. Steel rasped an answer as every soldier in the anterior chamber leapt to their feet, blades half-drawn, eyes blazing with alarm. None entered the captain's offices unbidden. None dared. Captain Elbami strode in, his presence filling the room as though a tempest had taken form and found flesh.
"What madness is this?"
he thundered, his voice cutting through the air like the lash of a storm.
"Whose head shall rule for shattering the order of my command?"
The sergeant stood rigid before him, breathless, every muscle strong taut.
"The Laqos!"
he cried, the words breaking the silence like a war horn.
"It ignites! The gate awakens!"
Elbami's gaze fell upon him, sharp enough to draw blood.
"For this,"
he said, his tone edged in steel.
"You break protocol?"
"You ordered us to summon you at the first sign of danger."
The sergeant pressed, his voice unsteady, unbowed.
"The Laqos does not stir without cause."
The captain's eyes narrowed to slits.
"Do you call it danger merely because it wakes?"
The sergeant swallowed hard, but the fire in his gaze did not falter. He spoke the words that froze every heart in the room.
"The center bleeds black. A Yachrezal takes form."
The air turned heavy. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the slow hiss of steel sliding back into its sheath. Then, Elbami moved, his voice a thunderclap in the silence.
"Damnation! How long?"
2 minutes, perhaps less.
The sergeant answered, lowering his arms.
"The gate will be right for passage any breath now."
Elbami turned sharply, his cloak snapping behind him like a banner caught in a gale.
"To the Laqos!"
he roared.
"Steel and spell alike, summon the Arcanists, at least 2, before the void spills its horror upon us."
A single cry answered him, fierce, unified.
"Yes, Captain!"
The chamber erupted into motion, boots striking stone, voices rising, orders flying like sparks from a forge. The air thrummed with the weight of fate pressing down on every soul as they rushed to meet what clawed its way from the dark. Captain Elbami lingered only a moment longer. He stepped back into his chamber, the heavy door groaning shut behind him. In the flickering lamplight, he fastened his sword to his belt with slow, deliberate care. His face was stone, but the storm behind his eyes betrayed the truth within. Each breath came sharp as shattered glass. A Yachrezal. Of all abominations that could crawl through the Laqos, none was fouler, none more accursed. This garrison, his garrison, would stand as the first line of defense. The echo of boots striking stone thundered down the corridor that led to the Laqos, heralding Elbami's approach. His soldiers had wasted no breath nor heartbeat in carrying out his command. Along the walls, torches flared then guttered as a harsh wind swept through the narrow slits, windows wrought for archers to hold fast against foes who might one day assail the gate's chamber. With measured steps, Elbami advanced toward the sanctum. Each motion was calculated, his bearing unyielding. His men would see their commander stride without fear into the heart of the unknown, and in his composure they would find their courage rekindled. By the time Captain Elbami strode into the gate chamber, the air was alive with the hum of power. Before the Laqos, 20 soldiers stood in a steel-clad half-circle, blades bared, shields raised, every man taut as a drawn bowstring. Within their ring, 2 Arcanists held their ground like sentinels wrought of living flame, their runic armor smouldering with restrained fury. Within the eye of that storm, upon the platform of the Laqos, stood the intruder, the Yachrezal. The figure's arms were spread wide, palms open, a mockery of peace. Silver light from the inflamed gate bathed its form. Though its shadow stretched too far, curling like smoke across the stone. Elbami's jaw tightened. He had read the records, the grim annals whispered through academies and barracks alike. Never trust a Yakrasal. They were liars, deceivers, predators, draped in human guise. Behind it loomed the Laqos itself, a vast arch of blackened iron, suspended 10 feet above the ground upon a dais without stair or step. Its circumference burned with a fire beyond mortal comprehension. The very air around it wavered, as though the fabric of the world strained to repel its presence. Within that dread circle churned a tempest of shadow, raw, searing, eternal, an agony of creation bound within a gate no mortal hand was meant to forge. The heat of the Laqos pressed against the air, thick, suffocating, carrying the scent of scorched stone and burning metal. The chamber itself seemed to tremble, as though the earth beneath the garrison recoiled from what had crossed its threshold. Sweat beaded upon the soldiers' brows, not from the firelight alone, but from the weight that hung in the air, an invisible pressure that bent the spine, clawed at the lungs. No one dared to speak. The Arcanists' runes pulsed brighter, reacting to the presence before them, their glow flickering with instinctive fear. Even the torches along the walls guttered low, their flames bowing inward, drawn toward the figure at the heart of the storm. The Yakrizal did not move. Nevertheless, every man present felt as though it watched him alone, measuring, remembering. Some whispered later that the air around it whispered too, that the shadows twisted to form half-shapes and vanished again. Others swore they heard faint weeping, soft as wind through hollow bones. It was said that every world was bound by such gates, though none among the living could name the reason. No craftsman claimed their forging, nor did any scripture whisper the names of their architects. Some scholars contended that Laqos meant gate, others held it to mean passage. Upon one truth all were agreed: these portals were not wrought by Oravandran hands. Elbami gave no heed to the quarrels of sages. His gaze was fixed upon the being that had crossed the threshold, its eyes veiled within the shadows of its cowl, its poise unnaturally still, and the darkness it wore as though it were a mantle of its own making. As the thrum of the Laqos rolled through the chamber, Captain Elbami knew the question was not why the Yakrisal had come, but whether any soul would live to see its purpose fulfilled.
Sainbainwu.
The words drifted across the platform, foreign and heavy with strange cadence. The sergeant frowned, breaking the silence.
What did he just say?
No answer came. The soldiers cast wary glances at one another, unease flickering in their eyes like torchlight upon water. Not a soul among them knew the tongue that had been spoken. Elbami turned the strange words over in his mind. Sini Binu, yet found no memory, no record, no echo of them in all his years of learning or war. Again, the Yakrisal spoke softer this time, the syllables curling like smoke.
Seimu.
Elbami advanced, his boot striking the stone with the rhythm of a war drum. His voice cut through the charged air.
Do you speak Umgani?
The figure inclined his head, ever so slightly. Then, in careful, accented Umgani, came the reply.
Greetings.
A ripple of shock swept through the ranks. Gasps broke forth. Boots scraped against stone, and blades lifted an inch higher in trembling hands. The sigils etched upon the Arcanists' staves flared to sudden life, mirroring their fear, until the chamber itself thrummed with a low and dreadful resonance that seemed to stir the very air.
Silence!
Elbami's voice cracked like thunder. His Hilbami's voice cracked like thunder, fixing each man in place.
You will stand as soldiers of the Oravandran army, not frightened children.
Elbami held his men's eyes a heartbeat longer, bending their panic beneath the weight of his will, before turning back to the creature.
Forgive my soldiers. They will not shame themselves again.
The Yakrisal's lips moved once more, strange syllables spilling forth, fluid and cold.
Vagabugaibolokhu.
The sergeant tensed. Elbami's reply was carved from ice.
You slip again into your tomb, Yakrisal.
The figure bowed at the waist, palms pressed to his chest, and alien grace in every motion.
Forgive me.
He said softly.
I am unpracticed in your speech. I asked if I may lower my hands, please.
Captain Elbami knew full well that the seeming grace of the Yakrasal was but a veil draped over malice. In the chronicles of old, they were named deceivers, tempers, weavers of false light, demons clad in mortal semblance. Wherever they walked, kingdoms withered and empires bled. Their words were seeds of ruin, their promises the heralds of despair. Never were they to be trusted. Never were they to be reasoned with. Never, by oath, by blade, or by breath, were they to be believed. Elbami inclined his head, his tone carrying the measured authority of command.
You may lower them. Remain where you stand until my Arcanists complete their reading of you.
The Yakrazal obeyed, lowering his arms with slow, measured grace, each motion almost ritualistic, before lifting his gaze once more.
Have I offended you?
Elbami's jaw tightened.
Nothing of the sort.
The very presence of the Yakrisal was an affront to all that drew breath. Discipline, forged in years of command, compelled Elbami to temper his revulsion. Though every instinct cried for steel, his training demanded restraint, if not courtesy, then at least the semblance of civility before so feared a being. A flicker of something unreadable passed through the Yakrisal's eyes, a shadow of thought too deep for human measure. Then, in that sane alien tongue, the words came again, unhurried, resonant, and wrong in the air.
Siltahil suit you.
The sound of it lingered like smoke, curling through the chamber, leaving a feeling of unease in its wake.
I must ask that you cease your tongue, Yakrasal,
said Captain Elbami, his voice measured, though unease coiled like a serpent within his gut.
I know not the meaning of your words, nor whether they weave spell or strike. From this moment forth, you will speak only in Amgani.
The figure inclined his head in acknowledgement.
I gave my name.
Captain Elbami?
The captain supplied, curt and unyielding. The Yakrasal bowed once more, the motion fluid, almost ceremonial.
Forgive me for neglecting the courtesies of greeting. The passage through the gate unsettles one's mind. In your language, my name is Eben Black the Cursed.
You will address me as captain.
Elbami replied, his gaze steady.
Tell me what honorific marks your station among your people. I shall use it so our discourse does not descend into insult.
I am a messenger,
the Yakrasal said simply.
No honorific adorns my name.
Elbami's eyes flicked toward the Arcanists, who stood at their post weaving sigils of blue flame into the air, their symbols encircling the creature like a net of light. His voice was iron.
Then forgive me, Elds Black. To name you without title is an offense I cannot commit, no matter your custom.
Elder Black is acceptable,
he said, recognizing the title.
Captain Elbami,
one of the Arcanists called, his voice slicing through the silence.
Our reading is complete.
Elbami turned sharp.
What do you see?
No power resides within this being,
the Arcanist declared. His tone was calm, unshaken, and even more chilling for it. A wave of disbelief broke through the ranks.
Liar!
One soldier roared.
Fraud!
Another spat, voice trembling with fear disguised as fury. Elbami moved before thought could seize him. His blade sang as it left the scabbard, silver fire dancing along its edge in the baleful light of the gate. He stepped forward, placing himself amidst his soldiers, and when he spoke, his voice was like the grinding of stone upon stone.
You will conduct yourselves as emissaries of Oravandral.
The soldiers froze where they stood, terror of their captain eclipsing even their dread of the nightmare before them. Silence fell again, taut as a bowstring drawn to breaking. The Arcanists remained frozen, hands suspended mid-gesture, runes still smouldering faintly in the air. One among them, the young adept, sweat streaking his cheek, furrowed his brow at the trembling sigils. The light within them faltered, flickered, and died, fading to ash.
That cannot be,
he murmured, voice scarcely more than a whisper.
The lattice, It broke mid-measure. The readings, they returned nothing.
The elder Arcanist, gaunt and pale as bone, drew a slow, uneven breath.
No, there was something. A flare, faint as a sigh, and gone again, as though the very pattern recoiled from its touch.
Ebon Black watched them both, head slightly tilted, eyes glimmering with a quiet amusement that made the skin crawl. His hands rested now at his sides, relaxed, unthreatening. Every motion seemed measured, as though he were moving through some invisible ritual no human could perceive. Captain Elbami sheathed his blade with a sound like judgment.
Explain yourselves,
He commanded.
You tell me there is no power within this being, yet the air quakes at its presence.
The elder Arcanist shook his head, gaze fixed on the fading ruse.
There is power, Captain, but not of any nature I have measured. It sits beyond the bounds of sigil or sphere. The threads of mana refuse to touch it. Even the runes avert their gaze.
It is not their fault,
He said.
Your sigils see what they are permitted to see. I am not permitted.
A murmur rippled through the ranks. One soldier took a half-step back, his shield trembling in his grasp. Elbami's hand drifted toward his sword again.
You speak in riddles, Yakrisal. If you have come as messenger, then deliver your message, and be done.
Ebon's gaze slid toward him, dark and fathomless, reflecting the light of the Laqos like a mirror of deep water.
I am here to speak.
He said.
I am here to be seen.
A hush fell across the chamber, thick as fog. Even the Laqos seemed to waver, its flames dimming for the span of a heartbeat. The elder Arcanist's eyes widened, a faint tremor entering his voice.
Captain, the wards!
The warning came too late. The runes shattered into sparks, dissolving into the air like embers consumed by wind. The circle around the Yakrisal no longer held. Ebon Black stood untouched at the heart of the fading light, his expression calm, almost mournful.
Fear not,
He said softly.
I have no quarrel with your steel, nor with the hands that raised it. I come only to speak of what follows, and of what cannot be undone.
His gaze turned toward the Laqos, and for a moment the storm within the gate seemed to bow toward him, as though the abyss itself recognized one of its own. The Arcanists recoiled, as if they were struck by a sudden wind. Their hands hovered in the air, fingers trembling over the ghost of dissipated runes. Even the elder, usually unshakable in the face of uncanny phenomena, clenched his jaw, pale lines of sweat cutting through the shadows of his face.
They bend nothing.
The younger Arcanist whispered, voice tight with disbelief.
No lattice, no wards of wards. He moves through us, as if we were not even here.
The elder Arcanist's eyes darted across the chamber, scanning the walls, the floor, the stone arches above, as though some hidden flaw tore reality open, allowing the creature to slip beyond the laws they had studied for decades.
It is unbound.
He admitted, each word trembling with reluctant awe.
The sigils recoil from him. The currents of mana flee at his presence. I have never
encountered this.
The younger Arcanist finished for him, a note of fear breaking through the brittle composure he had tried to maintain. They exchanged a glance, the kind that speaks volumes in silence, the recognition that the rules they had devoted their lives to studying no longer applied. Ebon Black watched this exchange with patient detachment, his eyes steady, dark pools absorbing every flicker of panic and disbelief. There was no malice in his gaze, only the patient precision of one who knows the measure of all mortal fear. A shiver ran through the younger Arcanist.
Captain, this is not merely illusion,
He said, voice low.
He carries a presence that falsifies everything we touch, even the Laqos.
Elbami's eyes flicked to the gate, the great iron arch trembling faintly as if in acknowledgement, the storm within it thrumming with a pulse that matched the rhythm of their own racing hearts. The older Arcanist's lips parted, and for a moment he seemed to glimpse something far beyond the chamber, far beyond even the Laqos itself.
If this reading is true,
He said in a whisper, that carried to only himself.
Then we are witnessing an impossibility made flesh. Nothing in the annals, nothing in the arcane codices, could prepare us for what stands before us.
The younger Arcanist glanced at his companion, eyes wide, the words caught somewhere between awe and terror.
Captain Elbami, we cannot touch him. Not with wards, not with runes, not even with our combined power.
Ebon Black inclined his head slightly, acknowledging their fear with the gentlest of movements.
Do not fear.
He said, his voice calm, calculated.
I am here to speak, not to strike. Understand this. The air you breathe, the laws you revere, bend at my passage. The Laqos itself waits for no mortal hand.
A low, resonant silence filled the chamber. The soldiers behind the Arcanists gripped their weapons tighter, their knuckles whitening. But even they could sense the fissure opened around the creature, a quiet, unnatural weight pressing down, bending the air, bending the rules they had always taken for granted. Elbami's gaze swept over the Arcanists, reading the fear, the awe, and the helplessness in their expressions. He drew a long, steady breath, reminding himself that command required clarity, even when the world itself seemed to unravel at his feet.